Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Rise of the Kasai. I played it on the PS4, because unless you have a PS2, you're not playing it on anything other than the PS4. So Rise of the Kasai is the sequel to Mark of Kri, and it continues the story to an extent. There are some things that I'm not going to jump into right away, because if you haven't played Mark of Kri, they could be kind of spoiler-ish. I do think they take an interesting approach to the story, with some parts of the game that you play are in the past, and some parts are in, I guess, the present. But it does continue the same vibe, where it's very clearly Polynesian, like Hawaiian-inspired. But I will say one thing about the story is it feels a little more disjointed this time around because of the way you enter each mission. It's done from a menu rather than what was done in the previous game, which was essentially a hub world, even though it was really just kind of a bar or an inn. But that felt more within the world, whereas entering each level from a menu feels a lot more disconnected. As for the audio, I mean, it is still a PS2 game, and the audio is fine. I really enjoy the music, and I do like the sound effects as limited as they are. Although I did run into a couple parts where I got some kind of staticky popping noises. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't horrible, but it was noticeable. As for the gameplay is very similar. It's kind of broken up a bit more because you actually have two characters you can pick from for each mission, either Tati or Rao, or I think it's Grizz and Bamusu. Rao and Bamusu are very big, burly kind of guys. They're slower, whereas Grizz and Tati are sneakier. So that does mix it up a bit, and you can pick who you want to play as, so that's a nice change of pace as to what it was before. But overall, it remains very similar. Good idea to scout ahead with your ability or your bird, depending on who you're playing as. Sneaking about is never a bad thing, and the combat works very similar, in that you use the right stick to sweep and target enemies, and each button attacks a specific enemy. That of course does lead to lack of camera control, but I'll get into that in a moment. Like I said in the story part, it is kind of different in that you select each mission from a menu, which I said I didn't like. There's a lot of stuff that you do in the menu rather than from the hub world that you used to do, which I just feel disconnects. As for the controls work well. Like I said, the camera thing, because you sweep with the right stick to mark enemies, that leads to pretty much no camera control. You have a button that can center the camera, but that's about it. And not uncommon for PS2 era games, the camera can end up being a bigger enemy than friend, but it is tolerable, it is passable, it is understandable. Lastly, the graphics. They kept a similar visual style, but they did change up the way it's presented. And by that I mean, you used to have your cutscenes, and you used to have like these still frame images with narration, and now the still frames are generally in motion. They're animated to an extent, which I liked. I liked that addition. I do enjoy the colors and the schemes and the art style. The only thing I didn't really enjoy is when you're playing the missions in the past as Bamusu and Grizz, is that it's all sepia tone, and I mean, it's just disappointing. Simply because it's generally such a colorful world that then to see that, you're like, oh, that's completely unnecessary. I really don't need that. The overall on this game is that I still really enjoy it. It was fun to go back and replay. I will admit, I think the first one is a bit better in some ways, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy the second one, The Rise of the Kasai. So if you have a PS4 and you're looking for some old school fun, I would recommend it. I had a good time replaying it. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, and if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.